Did you know that for many business owners, avoiding the numbers has less to do with financial knowledge and more to do with what they believe those numbers actually say about them? Welcome to the Marketing Magic and Messy Middle Wickedly Branded podcast. I'm your host, Beverly Cornell, and the founder and fairy godmother here at Wickedly Branded. Today's guest, Audrey Faust, is a CFO strategist who helps financially phobic women business owners move from avoiding their numbers to using them with clarity and confidence to make smarter, more profitable decisions. Audrey is an MBA, a self-made multimillionaire, and a two-time #1 bestselling author. But one of the most powerful parts of her story came during one of the hardest financial seasons in her own business, when the CFO stopped looking at her own numbers. That experience changed the way she understood financial fear and led to her to combine CFO strategy with mindset and the inner work as Manifesting CFO. Audrey, welcome to the Wickedly Branded podcast.
Thanks, Beverly. I'm excited to be here and chat with you today.
I am very excited. I am a creative person. I love designing pretty beautiful things, but I do not love numbers. And I love the story they tell. But the very first person I ever hired for my business was a CPA. I was like, I don't want to mess it up for the government. And I literally would cry every tax season. I would I don't want to do this anymore. So I hired that person, and then I hired an accountant. And I feel like that freedom and that changed a lot for me, because now I had to do the numbers with them and have some accountability around things. But I still think as a creative soul, I don't put enough probably emphasis on my numbers. I'm getting better because I want to forecast. I want to predict. I want to have more control of where we're going as a business. But there's also more at stake now too, as I've grown. So this numbers conversation, Audrey, is huge. I would love to hear how you became a CFO. Were you always a numbers person, or how did you land here and why?
Yeah, I always have been a numbers person with most classes except for math. And then I took an accounting class in high school and I got an A in it. Other than math, it was probably the only other class I ever got an A in. And there were people failing that class. And I would scratch my head and think, this is so easy. How are people failing this? So it just innately became easy to me. I did not end up going to college out of high school because I hated school. And I had this whole mindset around, my brother told me I was stupid my whole life. So I had a fear of going to college. I even had a fear of taking the SATs. So I ended up going, which I talk about in my first book, She Grows Rich. I hit rock bottom and was at the poverty line when we were a family of 4. And I got what's called an earned income tax credit. And I knew I had to change. And the only way I knew how to change at that point was to go and get an education, because that's what my parents tried to drill into me. You can't support yourself unless you get a college education. So I went back and got an accounting degree because that was literally the only class I remember doing well in and enjoying. So that's how I landed there, but I took the long road.
Sometimes life throws you some curveballs and you have to learn the hard way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like life can be the best teacher of what's important. You talk about the mindset stuff, which I think is super important. It's important for the work that we do as branding with the clients we work with. But I feel when you want to grow or you want to look at money differently, that is something that people need to do, because we're instilled with those money things from a young person. So what did money mean in your world growing up?
Yeah, it's it mindset. A lot of people use mindset a little bit generously. I just changed my mind, right? That's changed your mindset. But it's a lot more than that. It's these subconscious beliefs that were instilled in us as a child. 2 of the ones that I heard often, I can still hear my mother's voice in my head, is we work hard for our money. And that then translates into I have to work hard for money, which then translates into a workaholic and not really believing in your worth or your value. Those are all things I had to overcome.
My parents taught me that hard work was the result. If you don't work hard, you're lazy. And the hard work is what makes you who you are and builds character and all of that. And I started working when I was younger. I was probably 11 with my first babysitting job, but I actually had a job at 13 at a dance studio. And then I have not stopped working since then, right? So this idea of work has always been something that is, you have to work hard. And I think over the last, 3 years maybe, I have changed that differently. And it's not like a thing where you say, I can just change my mind like tomorrow. I love what I do. So it's I'm one of the lucky ones who gets to do what she loves to do, and the hard work input into my head was like, of course, I'm going to just be a workaholic and do all that because that's where I find value in what I do. And my self-worth is by this hard work mindset, right? And it's so much more than that.
There are tons. I call them money stories. There are tons of money stories that I grew up with. Money doesn't grow on trees. That was one my mom said all the time.
Are we long-lost sisters?
No, I don't remember my parents actually. It gets programmed into our subconscious as a child. It will prevent you from being rich. So your subconscious runs 95% of your thoughts, and you have 80,000 thoughts per day. And if you have rich people are mean, greedy, evil running in your subconscious has two jobs. It's one, to keep you safe, two, to automate things. So that's why we aren't aware of what's in our subconscious, because everything's automated back there. You don't have to think about tying your shoes, brushing your teeth, putting your glasses, whatever.
Muscle memory, right?
Its job is to automate it. But there are things that were put in there when we were a child, because before the age of 7, our subconscious is wide open because we have to learn so much so fast. And then we hear these things about rich people, about I work hard for money, and they get into our subconscious and become part of who we are. And we don't even know.
And they look at my mother's generation, and like she was able to be like 4 different people, right? She could be a mom, she could be a nurse, a librarian, or a teacher. They look at my generation, which could be accountants, could be whatever. But we still have all of the generational stuff from our grandmother's generation that we carry about taking care of being a good mom and taking care of your family and all these different things to carry. And before you know it, you're shooting all over yourself is what's happening. Yeah. And you don't even know who you are in that anymore because you've inherited so much crap. And you talk about all this stuff running around your head, 80,000 thoughts or whatever you said the number was. The time, like it's even hard to hear your own self. So we say you have to unpack the suitcase, literally like work hard for my money. Okay. And that's the thing that's sneaky about these things, Audrey.
Oh yeah.
And
they're automated already.
That, and they help you be successful. They've worked for you. So
yeah, I don't want to lose that. What got me where I am?
Exactly. So it's like, wait a minute, that served me well, but it just served me now in the season of my life. Is this where I want to be? Is this going to give me the feeling of arrival and a feeling of enough going forward? So I love that you're talking about this kind of like these thoughts that invade our minds. And sometimes it's even like our partners or our parents. Still, I'm 15 years know better. I was like, darn, I wish I could go back and redo things a little. But all my kids are successful. They all support themselves on their own. That was my goal in life, just to make sure they were all able to support themselves on their own and be decent human beings. And I've achieved that. We have. I have a 20-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I feel like I know more with my 11-year-old than I did when I was 20, with my 20-year-old. So I think now to see it a little bit differently and the power of that. So I feel when I started to look at money differently and I started to look at the forecasting and look at the reports and then also what was the closest to the money as far as the activities I was doing and having more awareness around what moves the needle and what's costing me and what's my runway and all these different things. When I started looking at those things differently, my money mindset stuff came out. The ugly stuff came out, but also the good stuff came out. So it helped me really frame it differently. Do you see that with the people you work with, that when they become friends with the numbers, is that a way that is the way they approach their business?
100%. So my framework is called, which is the same name as my podcast. It's called Manifest, Manage, and Multiply Money. And that's my framework. And Manifest is where we work on. We don't even look at your numbers until we get the mind right, until I identify the subconscious beliefs that have been driving you up until today. And I was working with a client who is a psychologist and she's a therapist, excuse me. She's a therapist. She works with divorced people and she knows all about the mind, right? And first thing we do is we identify her money story. She's in her 60s and I was able to pick up on her money story after one session. And because I've gotten so good now, I can just hear it, right? I just ask questions and I hear about how she grew up. I hear about how her parents were, how they are. I hear about how she is now, what she does. And she's I listen intently and write all it down and I see a pattern. That's one thing where my analytical mind
Me too.
comes in is I can identify the pattern and I can find the money story. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's not. Hers was a lot more difficult. It was really ingrained in there because she grew up with, I think her parents were split and one of them had money and one of them didn't. So she was getting both sides of it around money. And she formed this really unique relationship. Sometimes I have these basic questions I can ask you. They're in my book, She Grows Rich. It's to get into your subconscious is always the first word. I could say to you, Beverly, what's the first word if I say to you, rich people are? First word that comes to your mind. See, you're thinking about it. So it's not the first word.
The first word was privileged.
Privileged. Okay, perfect. When you think about it, you're going into your conscious mind. I can see your eyes move. So I know that you're going into your conscious mind. Some people say lucky. Some people say mean, all of that. So privilege is also a little bit negative, not as negative as mean or selfish or greedy, but it's kind of on the lines of lucky. So if lucky is the first word you come to, you're saying to yourself, I'm not lucky then.
I think be privileged actually means that you have a great responsibility. So for me is when you have money, and I feel like this right now with my money. So this is probably one of my money stories for sure, Audrey. One of the reasons why I feel like I can charge what I charge is because when I have means, I'm able to support my community in different ways. I mean, so for me, privileged is I feel like I'm open to that. My husband is one of 7 kids. So there was 9 people that lived in the house. The car broke down. He had like all hand-me-downs. He even says to our kid now, and I'm like, be careful with that. He says, when I was a kid, I wasn't able to have 6 cookies. Like he always talks about how he did not have a lot. And I do want my kid to be grateful for what he has. But I'm also like, the idea though, is that him and I actually do have different money mindsets. But he's very good at saving, a little bit better at spending. So we balance a little bit with each other. It can be, and if you have a business partner or you can always have other influences. Like you said, she had her both this kind of like amalgamation of the different money mindsets and what that looks like.
From both parents. And then I got to see how it was manifesting in her life right now. So it was really interesting. And because she was a therapist, she was like blown away that she never realized that was her money story. Like her mind was completely blown. And once you get that clarity of, oh, okay, this is why I do everything I do, it changes everything. And money becomes easier. I work with clients who've had trauma around money. People have used money to control them. So there's all that baggage that you're bringing in now to your business. And we don't think that we're bringing all of that money story into our business, but we always are. We're bringing everything into our business. So do one thing is how we do everything.
Yes. So how does that affect a business then? So let's use an example of the you feel lucky, or give me an example of one mindset that actually and how it plays out in the business.
I'll give you one mindset, which I see a lot. Rich people are mean, greedy, selfish. That comes up. People hate to say it because they feel bad about saying it, but it was the first word. So your subconscious believes it, which means it was put in there when you were a child. Your conscious mind now knows better, but then you have a nice, new, expensive car. So her subconscious was like, you're not going to buy that car. That means you're selfish. And then the other story that was going on was she was part of the big family, like your husband. And she was always told as a child, you have enough. You don't need that. You have enough. You don't need more. You have enough. So she's like, I don't need that car. I have enough. I already have enough. So her conscious mind, she was excited to buy this car. She wanted to buy this car. But her subconscious mind was like, whoa, believe that. Your conscious mind doesn't, but your subconscious mind does. And that's where it can sabotage us. If those subconscious beliefs are still lingering in there, they're just going to sabotage you in weird ways. And I don't know how they're going to show up, but they will. Because like I said, your subconscious mind has 2 jobs. Keep you safe.
So I'm thinking about what you're saying, and maybe I think I've done some work, but maybe I haven't. So one thing I'm hearing that's coming up for me when you say that is, I feel like what I've observed with my clients is so many of them are females and they undercharge for their work and they want to help everyone and they say yes to everything and they're not able to really be in their zone of genius because they don't want to let people down and things like that. I feel like I want to serve, right? I want to make the world a better place. That is definitely a very strong character mindset in mine. Comes great responsibility. I'm going to quote Spider-Man: with great money comes a great responsibility. Like, you do have to be a steward of your money. And I love like people who are really wealthy, who have like great initiatives, and they have made the promise to get rid of all their money, to give their money away. Like, I love those kinds of initiatives. I feel like that's what we should do if we have means. We should be helping the
You
world.
also get to take care of yourself too.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think I put that center. I think it's about the others. That's in my nature, to serve.
That's probably, your money story is probably, it's okay if I have money as long as I do nice things with it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had never thought about that, but that's interesting. My mom was always really good. She's a nurse, and she would go to people's homes, and she was a home healthcare nurse. At Christmas, we would always take people, like, she knew people were poor, and she would take people turkeys and things like that. And she would always tell me, like, if you see something, you should help. Like, you don't walk away from it. Like, you should always help. And so I do feel like she instilled that in me in such a strong way of looking at the world differently than, it's not just about me, it's about everybody else. Can also be exhausting, Audrey.
Exactly.
So you have to be careful.
You have to take care of yourself too, right? Like,
Yes.
That's why I say that. It's very nice to be generous and give. But you also get to take care of yourself. You get to take care of your family. You get to enjoy money. There's nothing wrong with enjoying it.
Hey, I know you're listening today because you're ready to take your business and your brand to the next level. But if you're being honest with yourself, maybe even feeling a little bit lost, but you've got this big vision and you know that you're meant to make a bigger impact. But sometimes it's so hard to know where to start and which direction to take. Does that sound familiar? You're not alone. So many purpose-driven entrepreneurs feel the exact same way as you. That's why I created the Clarity Quiz, a simple tool that helps you get to the heart of what's holding you back and shows you where you need to focus next. No more second guessing, no more spinning the wheels, just clear, actionable insights that give you the confidence to move forward, that next best step. Taking the quiz will give you a deeper understanding of your brand's true potential and what's standing in your way. And the best part, it only takes like 3 minutes, but the results, they could transform the way you approach your business and brand forever. So if you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed and you want to start showing up with purpose and clarity, go to wickedlybranded.com and take the quiz now.
You work hard for it after all, right?
Yeah, I am working hard over here. Yeah, I do feel like that there's a lot of layers to that work when you talk about money stories. And it's not just often so black and white that you're talking about. There's so much into it. So when people start looking at their money differently and they start becoming more aware of their money and they are watching those reports and they are looking at them differently, what changes in their business?
One of my favorite sayings, Beverly, is what you focus on grows.
Oh,
so if you haven't been looking at your money, and I've worked with people that had been in business 10, 20 years and never really looked at a profit and loss statement, understood it. And again, there's good reason. There's all kinds of stuff behind that, all kinds of trauma that happened that made them feel incompetent to do it, as well as it's judging them, right? But that's another thing we can get into. Like, we put a meaning on our numbers, that it means something about us. We're not good enough, right? If that's one of your subconscious beliefs, sure as hell is going to show up in your money, looking at your numbers. So anyway, once we get to the other side of that, which is the question you asked me, it becomes less of a judgment and more of information.
absolutely.
So this is just information we're going to look at. And the businesses that I've worked with have grown anywhere from 20% to, and this is honest to God truth, 1,000%, almost 2,000. I had a client who almost grew 2,000% profit, not income, profit. And that's not from cutting expenses, because that's not my primary thing. That's from growth. That's from doing things a little bit differently and growing your business to the next level, because that's more what I believe in. You can only cut so much. Yes. What I call, you could plug leaks. There's always leaks. I plug my own leaks every once in a while. Money that's, I signed up for that membership and never used it. So there's always leaks you can plug, but that's only going to get you so far. But if you want to grow, like, you need to know like what's working, what's not working in your business. by looking at your financial information and making decisions on it. And this is where your financial information can empower you. A woman I had is financially phobic woman. She was the one who actually had trauma, the control, the stolen money from all this. When we got to the point where we were looking at her financial information, she's been in business for 12 years, was unsure how to pull up a profit and loss, had never pulling up a profit and loss statement in her QuickBooks in 12 years. So we get in there and we pull up a profit and loss. And first of all, she asked me to do it, which almost fell off my chair. I was like, oh, you're ready? Okay, let's go. And then we get in there and she's kind of like bracing herself a little bit. And first we pull up last month or whatever. And I had looked at it ahead of time because I had access to her QuickBooks and I was just kind of looking around to see what we were going to look at today. And I pull it up and first of all, she's immediately making a judgment on a number she sees in front of her. And I'm like, okay, we're going to stop right there. A, we don't even know if that number is right. That's the other thing. People assume that their bookkeepers are doing things right. They might not always be. We did find a mistake that our bookkeeper made. So it was kind of like, all right, now I know, let's not make a judgment on a number that might not even be correct. And then I pulled up the entire 12 years that she had been in business and I had her look at that. And that was $2.5 million over the 12 years. And she just teared up. She's like, I did that. And I'm like, you did. So that's where your numbers can actually empower you. I created a business that generated over $2 million. Amazing transformation. I love it every single time.
I'm glad there's people like you in the world because I don't like it. I was the one in the accounting class. You got to remember this. It was a long time ago. Everything was manual. Is that real or is it a mistake? And then how we show our cogs now. I went up more detailed so I can understand this. Like I now have questions and I'm nerding out over the numbers because I'm like, wait, I'm going to know everything and what I'm missing.
It's just that happens. Once you understand it, once you get comfortable with it, you start being like, oh, I see how this can help me now.
And not Audrey, to be very honest.
And what have you found different by doing it? I'm curious. Has your business changed?
Yes. I do think that. So I decided within the last year, as all this has happened, I looked at my entire funnel and I don't want to scare people by this. You don't have to do all these things. This is all a process. It takes time. Don't think that tomorrow you have to have this all figured out. So I looked at every single step in my funnel. Now I'm a brander and I'm a marketer. I should know my funnel like the back of my hand, but oftentimes when you do this for a living, you don't do it for yourself. You do it for everybody else. So I took the time to do that for myself. And then I attached some metrics to every single one of those activities. And I also have the person that's accountable for every one of those activities. So every Monday we update the report. We know what's happening. In like a glance, I can see at every single funnel what's happening. And if something's green or red or yellow, then that person has to what they're going to do to fix it or whatever. And it has allowed the entire team to have language that's shared on what's important. So I've actually got my whole team to focus around some of this stuff and really become a priority for their rocks, their goals, their priorities as they go forward in their weeks and their quarters of what needs to change and what needs to happen. I know the business so much more now. Like I know I am like, I feel like I'm intimate with the business. I feel like I know its breath. Like it's just a different kind of business. Now, I can also tell you not everything is perfect. Good God, no. Everything is not perfect, but we are making adjustments to make it better. And I know that next year will be better than we are today. I know that this work is going to have the results I need. It might actually be some difficult decisions, but it's going to work. It's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns as much as I love them, but it is. I feel more empowered and I feel like I didn't have before. One of the things that you did was you went from owning a CPA accounting firm, a bookkeeping firm, to a firm that does mindset, manifestation type things. It's very emotional.
And I was like, and honestly, that was the things that were like helping these business owners grow. Amazing, like double, triple revenue. And it wasn't, yes, they had clear books because I like to say shit in equals shit out. I told my clients that all the time. We always made sure that the information was accurate. It was correct. And that was an important piece that my bookkeeper took care of. And then I took care of the rest. And I had two very, very large retainer clients that sold their businesses at the same time. And typically when you sell to a larger company, the accounting team goes away, right? The accounting gets brought into these larger companies that bought them. So I thought, okay, this is a sign from the universe that this is the end of my chapter in doing this accounting agency. I kind of went deep and I'm like, what do I really love doing? I don't want the done for you. I don't want to have to worry if my bookkeeper forgot to run the payroll or forgot to pay a bill or chasing down money, things like that. I didn't do a lot of that day-to-day stuff, but she went on vacation. Guess who had to sit in? Me. Or she forgot to do something or whatever. I had to pick up the pieces of that. So that to me was getting old. I didn't want to be involved in that anymore. And I thought, this is a perfect opportunity to reinvent myself.
Yeah.
And it turned out both of those clients that sold, the new companies ended up, I didn't find out right away because we went through due diligence and all that stuff that you go through when you sell. And I hung around for that. And then both companies wanted to keep us on. And both of us at that point actually had decided that we were going to move on to other things, my bookkeeper as well. I'll never forget because the largest one said to me, guess what, Audrey? Good news. They want to keep you on. And I could feel my heart sink to my stomach. I'm so thankful for that lesson because it allowed me to now step into this new avatar, which I realized I had been helping some financially phobic women all along. I just didn't have a name for them. And I'm like, those were the ones I loved the most because I saw the most transformation in them. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really who I'm meant to help and how I'm meant to help them. So that's a long story, but that's how the evolution came about and the rebranding and why I do what I do now.
I talk about narrative coherence. When you are clear about your story and you have this experience of maybe, or the energy, or maybe the reality of, I didn't do that before. And now it feels like you said, like I did something wrong in the process. Right. But it is from those exact mistakes. And we talk about this with my team all the time. We meet every single person where they are. Like all of us have weaknesses or things that we should have done that we didn't do, or we all try our best. Just like parenting, we all try our best. And there's some areas we're really good and we're kicking butt and taking names. And there's some areas that you just need a little help with. And the people who have done it all the time can be the ones that actually can get you through it because we made those mistakes and been in the messy middle and we know what it feels like. And we're not going to judge you because of that. That's the last thing we're going to do because we know it's pretty easy to get yourself into that situation. Even the very best people do this. It's so normal, right? And it does feel vulnerable to admit that you didn't do that for sure. And I appreciate the honesty of you didn't look and you should have looked and it was way worse than you thought it was. And it was way worse than I thought it was when I also looked at my books when I first looked at them. But the issue is you can go forward and you can make better choices. And with more information, you can make even better choices. I love that your approach is it's meeting them where they're at. It's okay. We'll get through this. We'll do the next step and we'll figure it out, whatever that is.
And whenever you're ready. That's my mindset too. Now, I'm not pushing you into looking at your numbers. By the second session, I'm letting you decide
when we're ready.
At them by the third, and I've had two extremely financially phobic women, and both were ready by the second or third session, which actually floored me because I thought we might be just dealing with getting them over the financial phobia for the whole 3 months.
And that is okay because if it gets you to the point where you do have more information, that it was worth it. That was exactly what you needed for that. And I do think it took me probably 2 or 3 sessions as well to get to that point with my accountant that I use. But it is, and she's also a female founder. She also kind of did the same thing you did. Like she said, I've been there, Beverly. This is hard stuff and you're doing it. You are actually doing it. And there's people who don't. So just know you're like, this is great. You're doing it. I think I'm seeing a lot of connection between financial clarity and brand clarity. I'm seeing that in both cases, what changes when somebody finally becomes willing to look directly at what's actually there, whether it's the books or who they actually are and how they show up, and then claim that for themselves and what that can look like going forward. And it's incredibly empowering. And the one thing I know for sure in all of this, Audrey, is that I know when more women have agency and have money and have power, the world will be more soulful. And I want more of that for my children. And so to me, it's like, it's an active mission to give that confidence to how people show up, whether it's their money confidence or their brand confidence, all super important. And when you're doing it by yourself as a solopreneur, you get so in the weeds, you forget about that stuff. And that's the magic in them. So I love that you're doing the same thing, but from a financial perspective that I'm doing from a branding perspective. So I do have a magic wand. Today I have my little pen magic wand, but I have a magic wand. And if I could wave my magic wand today and help you with one marketing or branding challenge you have, what would it be?
Oh, geez. Surprise question. Marketing or branding?
Something that is even a little frustrating.
You said just a minute ago, I found very interesting, Beverly. And so you said repeatedly sharing my story. I tend to talk about my client stories and my client transformations a lot more than my own.
So your story is your superpower because you've been through it and you've come out the other side and you know what it took and you know how hard it was. And people will be connected to you because you've gotten through it and you've been to the other side. And that language of when you were through it, when you went through it, that's your language to connect directly to people who need you. That's the actual language you need, the actual real lived experience of that. And yes, actively sharing your story, your perspective, like what you've learned, how you've grown, all those things is incredibly valuable to position you to the perfect client.
Okay.
So I would definitely, we have a service called the Brand Spark Experience. It's just a 2-hour session where we talk about where you've been, where you are, where you want to go, the challenges you've experienced. And from there, I see patterns, like you're talking about, I see patterns. And those patterns typically are around maybe a personal value of yours, something that is ingrained in you so deeply that really drives so much of what you do with the work you do, and talking about your story from that perspective, from all the different angles. I talk about confidence and visibility because for me, visibility was really hard, especially post-COVID. I stopped wanting to show up in front of my business. I never wanted to step in front of the brand and feel, to me, my story, my mindset around the business was I never wanted to be braggy or have an ego. And I thought if I stepped in front of my business, Audrey, that's my shimmering thread that connects all of my stories and infused into my work so deeply that I feel like is my unique differentiator. And if I didn't, I don't feel like people would understand that I'm actually genuine and I've had a really hard time. And this is what I've found that these things have taught me and how I've gotten through them and what I've done with those things. They might feel very disconnected, these 10, 20 story arcs that have defined my life, but they're actually all very connected based on a core value I have or something that's really meaningful to me, that it is infused in everything I do for the clients that I serve. So I would encourage you to look at some of those things. And that's something that we actively do in the Brand Spark Experience. So if you need help with that, obviously I want to help you, but it is something that I think can be very powerful. So your story is your superpower, especially when it comes to branding and marketing. Sharing your client stories, for sure. You should talk about your testimonials. You should talk about your case studies. Those are real lived experiences. Absolutely 100%. You should be sharing those as well. But it's a kind of a combination of that makes the magic formula of that. And I do think that the testimonials, I call them glimmers and evidence of your magic. They're the proof that your story and your work matters. And that they are like your magic, your shimmering thread, and your glimmers are like the things that you need to continue and go forward and really lean into. And so, yes, I want you to tell your story. Show up, talk about how hard it was. And I talk about it in different ways too. I'm sure you can do this too with your kids and being a mom and being a spouse and all these different things. But I'll talk about confidence from a 9-year-old's perspective because I had a 9-year-old, right? And I'll say, when did little girls lose their confidence? My son legitimately thought he was Harry Potter with his wand and doing the spell in the middle of Universal Studios. And there was a huge crowd. He legitimately thought he was. And he never for a minute thought I would be embarrassed. He was fully believing 100%. And I was like, when do we lose our confidence? And so I use those moments.
I think it gets beaten down and then
it does.
Yeah.
But I was having a confidence issue. And one of my confidence issues was I had not done the work to know my story. And that was why I didn't want to show up because I wasn't clear on who I was and how to show up. But once I was clear, the confidence, momentum, information, everything became totally different. Yeah. And that's what happens with my clients too. And it sounds like it's exactly what happens so much in the work you do. Once they have the clarity, then they get more confident and they have more information and they have more momentum. Do what you do because we need that to help us, especially us that are more creative and maybe a little, I don't want to say woo-woo, but we're a little floaty because we're creative souls. But it is very grounding when you have clarity around those things. So I see so many alignments in the way we approach the work we do. It is not black and white. There's a lot of layers to it. And that's the fun part for me, is to find the pattern and help my clients see themselves differently, see their books differently. That's beautiful. So yeah, tell your story. I think you have got a great story. Tell it in all the different ways you know how. From like all the experiences you had during that year, look back, write down what that year looked like, where you didn't feel confident. Why was it so hard? Talk about that, because I think that's where you're going to find a lot of connection with people who will really resonate with you. Yeah. Okay. So my last question is, what does it mean to you to be wickedly branded? I like to ask this question because I feel like it's a fun name. It's a noun. It's a verb. When you hear the words wickedly branded, what does it mean to you?
To me, it means you know exactly who you are and who you serve, who you help, and why you're here on this planet, right? And I just discovered that, I think, this year. Like when I came across the financially phobic avatar, I was like, oh, this is it. I finally see it. And you know how people always talk about a niche, right? Or a niche, or whatever you want to call it, whatever the word is. I never was like, well, I don't really have one. And I don't want to just work. I've worked with a lot of interior designers. I don't want to just work with interior designers. I've worked with coaches and creatives. I never wanted to, quote unquote, niche down until this happened, until I branded myself with working with financially phobic.
And your story and who you help in that way. And it isn't necessarily industry specific. It isn't necessarily, like, don't feel like it has to be like black and white or so rigid. It can resonate with who you are, the story you have. So I remember there was somebody she was divorced and had a really bad traumatic experience in it. And she kept working with people who were lost in who they were. But there are all these people. And I was like, do you not see you were lost? And they're attracted to your story because of what you've come through. And she was like, oh my gosh. And once she understood the story, her story got even better and more clear. And she resonated with more of those people. And so her whole business bloomed because now she was clear on her story, clear on who she served. It was so strongly. And like you said, there's something that changes in you when you finally clicks and you're like, yes. And that builds confidence too. So there's like this whole trickle effect that happens in that, and really just showing up as yourself. And I think for women, that is incredibly hard. As branded to me is exactly that, like embraced her green. And when she did, she was very powerful. And once you do that, once you embrace your story, embrace how you can help, embrace the clients you serve, the financially phobic women, watch out, world. Like that becomes extra, and people can feel it in their bones.
Yeah.
When you are so in alignment, they can feel it ooze from your pores.
And it's funny. The word actually came up when I was in a live mastermind setting, and I had somebody interview me to find out what I do, because I wanted to see what came out. It was actually her idea. And when she started interviewing me, she said, Audrey, I'm a financial phobe. And everything in my body lit up when my intuition went nuts. And I was like, my compassion went, oh my God, I just wanted to hug her, right? I can help you. And she started talking about why she was a client. She ended up being a client, which is hysterical. But she was interviewing me and this all came out and it was just magical. And then I thought, she's just one person in the room. There were like a dozen women in this room. So I said, so how many, and they're all like multi-six-figure women business owners, or at least at 6. And I'm like, so how many women in here relate to being a financial phobe? And half the women raised her hand. I almost fell off my chair. These were all accomplished, successful, embraced it, that she was able to have her power and really make a difference, right? And so the very last line I wrote, so I want to dare you to be wickedly branded. And when those words left my body, I had the same experience. So I immediately went and looked for wickedlybranded.com, and it was actually available. And then I went and looked on the socials and it was available. And I bought it that day. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to do something with this. And it took me almost 6 months to be able to say I could do that brand, because it's very sassy. I love it.
I have to be able to stand in that and that be fully me. And what I didn't realize is it was already me. I just had to accept that it was me. And so once I did that, watch out. And it just changed everything in my team, the energy of the work we do. It just infused so much in the work. You're right. There's these magic moments that happen. And I feel like we do that a lot with our clients in the work that we do. And it's an honor to sit with them when they get the tingles. So where can people find you, Audrey, and learn more about, I know you have something free on the site too. You have for their business. I would love for you to reach out to Audrey. I think she could really help you take control of something that maybe needs a little bit more love and attention than it's gotten. Thank you so much, Audrey, for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Beverly. This was a lot of fun.
This is an incredible conversation. I certainly feel like I have been through this transformation, always working on myself, working on these types of things. This is a process. At some point, hopefully it becomes second nature, but I'm still learning as well. So this is always good reminders of the things that we need to be open to. If today's episode, a little bit of a fire under you and gave you some new ideas of the way to approach money, to approach branding. And most of all, I hope it inspired you to take some kind of action to move forward. Because what I know for sure is that you have a message that matters. You have work that matters. And the world needs to hear what you have to say. And money can help you say it more and help more people and help yourself in different ways you didn't even know possible. So I want you to increase your impact in the world. And that can mean connecting with the right people in a way that feels true to you. And maybe our guest today is the person who you feel that with. I want you to keep showing up. I want you to keep sharing your brilliance. I want you to keep making magic in the world. And if you ever feel stuck, you don't have to do it alone. Audrey's here. I'm here. We would love to help you turn your spark into a wildfire. But until next time, I want you to dare to be wickedly branded. Wow, what an incredible conversation we just had. I hope that this episode lit a little bit of a fire under you to finally bring your brand to life in a way that feels true to you. Remember, clarity is the spark, but activation is that fire and flame that keeps your message and your visuals and your strategy aligned, and the confidence that follows. So does that lovely thing called momentum that you've been waiting for. So if today's episode, if you loved it, make sure you are subscribed to the Wickedly Branded Marketing Podcast so you never miss an insight or a conversation. Until next time, dare to be wickedly branded.